Last time on Dice Fall and Everyone Dies.
You're letting me know that you're about to run off on your own into a forest, unsupervised, to go through a portal into a world that is inhabited by powerful wild creatures. And you're going to attempt to do this alone.
Not alone. I need to travel to the first one.
The first world? What makes you think that such a place is accessible here?
Well, my companion and humble advisor, Wimble.
Wimble dibble for Vimble!
Oh my god, no!
And your Naya teacher informs you that to pass the test, you need to be able to show that you can adequately enchant an available human.
She thinks he's hot. and that she might have feelings for him. And that she knows she has a lot of competition and she's out of words.
Welcome back to Dice Fall and Everyone Dies. I'm your GM Chris, and today let's talk about magic and why you do not see it solving every single mundane problem on the face of Golarion. Fantasy stories often need to be able to solve this kind of issue for their audience before we even suspend our disbelief and dive into the meaty bits of a story. Because one of the least satisfying tropes in fantasy is for problems to be solved simply because a wizard did it. And we have to ask ourselves, how do we square that circle when we literally have a wizard in the party? Novelists approach this issue by explaining their magic system, or bind the use of their magic into some moral foundation. Even if an author does not explicitly explain a magic system, the core logic and boundaries will be scribbled down on a note somewhere for reference. The dichotomy presented for most novelists is the idea of hard and soft magic systems. A hard magic system has well-defined rules and limits. Magic remains powerful but does not accomplish the goals of the user without some sort of cost or maximum power. If the characters do not know the extent of those rules, no problem. It's more about the author following those rules and not violating them. Soft magic systems have less definition and less limits on cause and effect. A character does something and then a magic effect occurs. What you will see, though, is that they often have less control or the sources are far more mysterious. Like every great dichotomy, authors have made a functional gradient to blend the concepts between these two types of storytelling with magic. Tabletop role-playing games face a similar challenge, but must be able to explain the rules well enough for the table to still play a game. This lends many systems to be considered hard magic systems, but does not pigeonhole all systems completely. For a hard magic system in tabletop, we find those as defined spells with access to magical abilities. Soft magic tabletops tend to leave discretion in the hands of the players and the game master for effects and costs. There are plenty of creative game designers that keep working to provide a plethora of fantasy experiences for everyone. For our purposes, and in the case of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Golarion has a hard magic system. Spells have components, categories, levels, and a plethora of diversification, but are well defined. Magical items exist, they've been available in multiple forms for long periods of time. Golarion is awash in magical energy. So how do we keep every problem from being solved by magic? The root of this question lives between the lines of text in the core rulebook and in the questions that we ask about how the rules interact. Every question will be subjective to a particular degree, and this is very purposeful. A great tabletop experience will allow for creativity and some bending. I like to let the relationships between the rules help give us definitions when we ask every toddler's favorite question, why? Why do characters have spell slots? What does that answer even mean? Why do they replenish after resting? What is the difference between a focus spell and a spell slot? Why must wizards learn every spell while clerics have access to their whole spell list? We can and should ask as many questions to our heart's desire and then begin answering those questions one by one. Those answers can then be distilled into a bigger answer for our core question at hand: why is not every problem solved with magic? We could answer that very flippantly. Well, not everyone has magic. But why does everyone not have magic? Not all magic is divine or primal, and the arcane can be specifically learned. Why shouldn't a prosperous nation train every grade schooler how to be at least a first-level wizard universally? I mean, it can be done within the rules, so why does Golarion not have waves upon waves of nascent wizards casting magic missile into the literal darkness? You see, we can even take our world, because it's in a similar state. We have at our disposal near unlimited knowledge, and yet we spend much of it seeking entertainment and escapism. And while some of us learn new abilities from the internet, many just skim its surface and never consider that they could quickly find an answer or method to accomplish almost any task. And as the potential set of answers and corollary references is so large, we need to apply a framing device to this question, lest we really want to spend days delving into human nature. The frame that we'll apply to this question today is an understanding that in a complex and dangerous world, people will choose the most simple, repeatable, and safest way to accomplish any given task. People are faced with daily challenges that tax their resources and must manage those resources aggressively to survive in a world with proven threats greater than themselves. As such, knowledge is power, and neither is free. You see, a nation does not train its whole citizenry in magic because that represents handing over considerable power distributed amongst many unknown variables. So a ruler who followed that course of action could find themselves at the end of a barrage of forced projectiles that never miss with a single high-profile mistake. See, when magic can deal damage, even if it's only in part, that in and of itself is a tool for violence and power. And who should be trusted with what ability that can deal out deadly force? Because people are focused on simple, repeatable, and safe ways to accomplish particular given tasks, more complex tasks have a lot greater range of potential mistakes and foibles associated with them. And when you can combine deadly force with potentials for mistakes, tragedy has an opportunity to happen. The question itself will continue to arise from many different lines of questioning about how magic should impact the fantasy world. Social organizations like monarchy, oligarchy, republic, democracy, and anarchy, each of these concepts that we have very passionate feelings about, they carry very deep meanings when applied to fantasy worlds. For instance, the relatively unique philosophy of self-rule appears very rarely in Golarion lore. One of the closest nations to exemplify it is Andoran, and even in that setting it has conflicts between representation and the power of its underlying structures. And in settings with less rigid social governance, we see concepts of might makes right, such as over in the Sarkor Scar, where the defeat of the demons left a power vacuum that rose up. So again, why is not every problem solved with magic in Golarion? Because every problem cannot be solved with power. Some can and must be solved with power, but others never should. Should one solve loneliness with power? Can a heart be mended from grief with power? Should the scorned lover use power for their revenge? Should power be used to move sheep into the field when the young shepherd is still learning responsibility? Should every mundane task in the world of Golarion be solved with the power to wrought violence? Now, I have my answers to this question, but we would love to hear your answers in the comments on this podcast. Let us know on our website, dicefallpodcast.com, or in the Dicefall Podcast YouTube channel. Leave a rating and smash the like button while you're there to help signal those algorithms that the story should be shared. I'd like to hear what people think about the utilization for power on mundane tasks. I mean, how much different is that from a battery? Electricity is a kind of power. It's an interesting thought. Now, let us go ahead and see what mischief Master Kazlin is getting up to, shall we? So, Zach, Kazlin has wanted to get the Bellflower Network set up in Breachill, and you've had that as one of your stated goals from the very beginning, and you now actually have the opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. In addition to setting up the network, what other things interest you to accomplish over the next several weeks?
Kazlin would like to become a slightly more attuned combat person, so he'd like to get maybe weapons a little bit more powerful, maybe his armor a little bit more a little better, and because he felt at some points there was whenever he encountered some enemies in his previous travels, I guess he always felt like he could be better, so he'd like to try to be.
So then, to accomplish these goals, what means does Kazlin want to employ?
What do you mean?
Well, the easiest ones first is when you want to get your arms and armor improved, right? Mm-hmm. The one who's probably most proficient in town is Trino. Do you want to go to her to be able to get your your weapons augmented some?
Yeah.
And what weapons do you want to get augmented?
Well, he's thinking maybe finding something a little bit better just than his sword. So maybe buying another weapon. He does have the doubling rings, and he's got the scimitar that has a +1 striking. So his short sword, if he wanted to, he could get something a little bit better than that, and then that weapon would be a +1 striking.
So you're looking at replacing your short sword, right?
Well, replacing it in combat, but not in my heart.
Not in your heart. Trinil can put different types of runes and stuff on your weapons, but she's going to be absolutely terrible at attempting to source a weapon. You do know over at Quarters and Bits that you probably have the best short sword and the like that they have available.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they won't necessarily be unable to source a replacement weapon for you that's there. Maybe something that is imported. So you had mentioned before that you had wanted a dueling sword. Do you want to try to get the folks over at Quarters and Bits to maybe see if they can pick one out for you? See if they can use some of their contacts?
Yeah, I think in the time that it would take to import one of those, we got some downtime, so I don't think that would be an issue in the...
So when you begin engaging Crink Twiddleton, he's a little abashed that the short sword that they had brought up for you is just not good enough for you.
Well, it is a beautiful sword, but I just don't think that I feel a little limited by its abilities. However, it will always have a place above my hearth.
And you're wanting something to dual wield,
Right.
Have you ever heard of the Aldori dueling sword?
I think that's a different type of duel.
Well, this dueling sword, it's a little like a short sword, but it's longer. It's got a curve in its blade. It's used by the Aldori sword masters.
So,
if you're good enough, you might be able to wield one.
Well, I do have a scimitar, and that sounds like it sounds a little bit like that, right?
The scimitar, it's a bulkier weapon. It's thicker, broader. The dueling sword, it's much more of a finesse weapon. You don't carry through. It's almost like a curved rapier almost.
Interesting.
But it's very difficult to wield, especially if you are attempting to wield two weapons at the same time.
I see.
We could try to put tendrils out to see if we can get one, but getting in a mastered, a Aldori master's sword could cost a pretty penny.
Well, I have a few pretty pennies to spend.
Even when we factor in your discount, it still would probably take us, and you realize immediately he is about to quote you a ludicrous amount on his surface. It would probably take about 40 gold to be able to get one.
40 gold for a piece of steel.
One of the most fine-crafted quality pieces of specialized fighting steel on the face of Galarion.
I find that to be... I'm sure it's good, but I've seen much finer, I'm sure.
In my humble opinion, the short sword we provided you is a much better weapon.
So are you saying that the dueling sword is only worth 10 gold, or however much I spent for that? If it's better, shouldn't it cost around the same, at least?
I fucking love that logic. The Reckoning is a favored group in town. We tend... You can give me a society for being able to detect this level of bullshit. That... We're willing to let some of our weaponry go at substantially discounted pricing to be able to prove its worth in the hands of stalwart adventurers.
Now you're speaking my language.
But when it comes to one of these Aldori dueling swords, well, they only let it go at the price that they let it go at. That's not something that we can manufacture here.
Well, if it's a matter of pride, I can always say that it was manufactured by your lovingly crafting hands.
Well, we'd have to even be able to get one in to try to reverse engineer it. We'd still end up having to spend the 40 gold. You can give me a diplomacy to try running this line, or you could try running a different line.
Consider it an investment. What's 40 gold for something that could produce much more gold in the future when others from around the area know of your prowess and ability to craft such fine steel?
Give me that diplomacy.
I'm not trained in that. 15.
If I even try to copy one of these dueling swords, the Aldori masters may just... Well, they might just come enforce their specialization on my shop personally. You might have to use other means to acquire one. Give me an Underworld lore check.
Oh yeah, I do have that. 24.
So you realize that cleverly hidden in the displays of the various weapons across the different areas of the shop, and you're not sure why you didn't quite notice it before, there is homage to the Bellflower Network written into the walls.
What's this guy's name again?
Crink Twiddleton.
Crink.
The one who amorously attempted to sell Stano everything under the sun. You notice that he is taking a very different approach to dealing with you, though, despite how much of the sausage you've consumed.
Is this before or after Kazalin has begun setting up?
You're at the very beginning.
Okay. I say this in Halfling.
Mm-hmm.
Crink, have I ever told you about my friend Pudlow?
The Pudlow?
Oh, you sure you've heard of him?
Many halflings have heard of Pudlow. Pudlow on the down low. Make sure you get through the mudlow to the garden low.
The garden low is filled with many a flower.
And by the flowers dancing and through the trees fanning, through the trees fanning, you can make it through to the other side of the garden wall.
I'm not good at this. Whatever you're doing right now, I am not good at whatever this is.
You get the impression that he understands that you're attempting to convey association with the network.
Okay.
Are you one of their representatives?
I'm what you might call a flag bearer.
Oh, it must have been smudged on the missive. It was Corvosan, not Porvosan. I wondered what the hell a Porvosan was. You're the one that they sent up north to here.
I have been around, but yes, that is me.
What happened to your secret identity?
You
were supposed to come around asking for land investment.
Well, I got caught up in things. You know how it goes.
Best laid plans of halflings and dwarves. Okay, well, so what's your plan?
Well, I do have eyes on a very new means of opportunity that has just presented itself. Breachill can be a hub for the network. I can't speak much about it now because as of right now it's very it's still very up in the air, but I do believe we have the resources to gather friends from all across the world.
Well, this is positive news, that's for sure. Well, if that's what you need to talk about, why didn't you bring up this whole thing about a dueling sword?
Oh, because I do want that sword.
Oh! Well, you should have mentioned that sooner. I'm going to have to get it imported, but I'm going to have to break a few legs to be able to get it over here. Aldori steel is not cheap to come by, mostly because they kill most of the people who ask for it if they don't pass their stupid tests.
What kind of tests?
Well, you have to be studying under the Aldori masters to even get access to the steel itself. We're going to have to be able to use other means to get it.
Well, that is something that halflings have a great deal of expertise in, is getting in places they shouldn't be.
To be able to acquire it, though, I'm probably going to need about 25 gold, though.
I could do that.
Alright, we'll go ahead and get that taken care of for you. Do you even know how to use something like this?
I do believe I have some experience, yes.
Well, we'll get that going. So what's your plans for being able to get the area set up? Is there... Well, we heard that very tall, dark-headed lady, Demal. She's the one who's been doing things around the keep.
Right. Well, first we're going to need somebody who has a great deal of magical expertise when it comes to magical items. As of right now, it's nobody in our group has the ability to repair the means of transportation.
Well, if you need good stonemasons, the Tuskhead stoneworking guys, Rorsk Askbane is a pretty good one. He does pretty well for a dwarf. A lot better than that Basandi. Gotta be wary of that one.
Are they experienced in magical crafting?
Well, the Axebane work is, for the area, almost second to none. If there's anything particularly wrong with stonework, he'll be able to figure it out. That whole dwarf stone knowledge thing, as he kind of waves his hand vaguely at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give him a call then.
I'm more or less worried about that Chilaxian woman, though.
She's harmless.
I've seen her swing that sword. She ain't that harmless.
She's ambitious, but she does have some sort of heart in there somewhere. I don't think she'll be any trouble.
Well, if that's the case, then we'll do everything we can. Just let us know what you need of us. Anything to get people past the garden wall.
Right, and across the garden ocean, as it were.
I think it's garden... Are you sure you're not the Porvosan? But you're able to get things set up with Crink Twiddleton to kind of begin making the connections necessary. and kind of working hand in hand with Krink. And as you begin seeing all of the detritus come out of the keep over the first couple weeks, and then as you move through Rova and into Lamashin, you did see that while pretty early on, a few days after the clearing out of the keep, Alec and Taffy had just kind of poofed, and a couple days later they ended up coming back. But then they started work on getting the courtyard and the light cleared out, and that's when the Masons still began coming in for the first time. And most of Stano's activity has been dealing with Rorsk Axebane in getting everything set up. And as you're kind of making your connections, setting stuff up, kind of finding the underbelly of what's going on in the town, and waiting for the sword itself to come in, you're pretty sure that even if everything that Krink is able to do goes smooth and according to plan, it's probably going to be a couple months until you're able to get the blade itself. Mm-hmm. And so you're in between talking to the right people, making sure that you've got the connection set up, making sure that as halflings begin coming into town, that they've got a place to be able to go to, and getting all the work and stuff set up. You're able to put pressure on the right folks so that resources and funding are made available, that, you know, when folks come in, they'll be able to get quick little bit of lodging. You get all of the stuff set up, integrating between the quarters and bits, a little bit of Lamont's Lament and the soup kitchen there. And in all of these preparations throughout the time, you notice that Alec is looking a little bored one day. You know, you come down and, you know, he's been trying to, you know, that he's been up at the Citadel fairly often. But, you know, finally being off, you see him just kind of looking down in over a mug of ale over there at the Wizard's Grace. Did you keep your lodgings at the Wizard's Grace?
No. I guess I'm back at the Citadel now at this point.
So, at this point, the Citadel is still mostly crumbling. Well, it is in the beginning aspects of repair. With all of the trash cleaned out, y'all now have the full access, at least all the way up and down, from the top of the keep to the lower part of the keep at this point. Mm-hmm. The rooms for general repairs are still unserviceable at this point in time. Do you want to interact with what's going on with Alec, or do you want to move on through the connections and the like?
I'll walk up to Alec, see what's going on with him. What's wrong? No beast to swing at today?
Hello, Master Caslin. I'm trying to figure something out. I have a small problem. You see, I'm afraid that my skills are going to get rusty. I got so used to being able to, as you said, to be able to swing a lump of iron around. The problem with being a seneschal is that you don't get to swing a sword at things all the time.
Well, I can understand that. You are, however, aren't you an armature?
Marilictor. I was disguising myself as an armature before.
Oh, that's true. Forgot about that. It's been a while since we've talked.
It has. You could become an armature yourself.
I don't think so. I think you know better than to bring that up at this point.
I know. Fleeting hopes and all. It's just, I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep my skills sharp.
We could always seek out a little bit of trouble, if you know what I'm saying. I haven't...
What do you mean?
Well, your skills are getting rusty, my swords are getting bored. I think we could probably work something out.
Are you challenging me to a duel?
No, that's not exactly what I was saying. I think we could, find something in the forest just to go at it. You know, I don't think that's probably necessary.
Even a friendly one? Do you want to test out how your skills have grown? I've seen you fight with Steno periodically. Do you ever want to see about challenging her fighting style?
I suppose we could work something out, sure.
But you meant things in the forest. The last time I went into the forest, well, that was a time-bending excursion. But what are you thinking?
I have heard reports of some bandits who are hassling some travelers here and there. Maybe we could check that out, see what's going on.
How long you wanting to go out for? A day, a week, a patrol? What sounds interesting to you?
Well, I have been missing a bed under the stars lately, so I wouldn't mind staying out for a while.
Alright, let's make this work. You make the preparations, and let's go ahead, and I think we can probably set out as soon as tomorrow.
Okay.
So, how long do you want to set out for?
Be like a week.
A week. So, as make preparations, you spend a little bit to get your gear together, make sure you've got the provisions, a little bit of an extended hunting trip at this point. Do you want to go north, south, east, or west?
East is... We're just on the edge of...
So you're on the edge of Isker.
Druma, right?
Yeah, so Druma's kind of north and east. Andoran is more west-southwest. The Chitterwood and Cheliax proper are more south. And the river that runs through Isker is to the west.
Let's go into Druma.
You want to head up towards Druma?
Yeah.
So the space that is separating Druma from Isker is a fairly high mountain range. And if you knew a direct access across it, you could probably make that trek in about 3 days to get on from one side of the mountains to the other side of the mountains. But you can kind of begin exploring to see if you can find a potential path through that area if you desire. And that would probably take you a couple days to kind of get further into the mountains, some time to explore, as well as time to come back.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds fine.
So as you and Alec begin getting all of your stuff together, and do you all want to take horses or do you want to hoof it?
Horses.
Horses? So you get all of the provisions together for the horses and all of the things necessary for the encampment that you'll need to do. And you begin heading up into the lovely, wonderful wilderness. So this takes you up well north and east. I had to remember. North and east of the Goblin Blood Caves. It takes you into these wide, broad vistas as you begin getting higher and higher up into the elevation. For the primary aspect of the march, Alec is definitely not wearing full plate. You can see that he's actually geared in a leather very similar to the kind that you're wearing. One of the interesting parts is that you see that he has a fair bit of survival skill, quite comparable to what you've been trained in. But whereas you've been kind of trained to minimize your presence, you can see that his movement through is more about efficiency in being able to go from one state to another. That is not wholly unexpected for a Hell Knight, but the fact that you can tell that he's not hitting the footfalls incorrectly, that, whenever y'all are hunting for the fresh trail meat, whether it is trying to take out maybe a turkey or maybe some rabbit or a quail, that he is about as proficient, if not as subtly quick at it as you are in the process of it. And you get higher and higher up into these hills and mountains. So for the first couple nights, go ahead and give me a survival check.
24.
So you're able to make sure that you have definitely enough food, enough water. At this point, because we're in the late harvest, we're in the month of Lamachan, so the equivalent of about October. Leaves are moving from that green into that golden color. You get a few hints of the reds going. The sound of the forest surrounding y'all all around. High passes, the wind continuously blowing. Just this serene, sort of peaceful vibe for your first couple days that's there. And then that's when you come across a giant footprint. And give me a survival check.
16.
From what you can tell, this footprint appears to be somewhat feline, but it looks to be too heavy to be something about the size of a bobcat. But it definitely looks like it is something that is a predator, probably of the area that's there.
Stagrim, have you ever seen anything like this?
Let me take a look. That looks like a very large bobcat, maybe? I haven't seen something quite that big before. I mean, I've heard of things like tigers, but I don't think they really count. Though the claws seem to indicate that whatever it is something that's probably quite mightily deadly. You should probably be more... We should probably be cautious as we're moving around here.
Agreed.
Maybe this thing is the reason why we've not seen bandits. And are you sure there are bandits in this area?
That's what I heard.
So y'all begin moving through the day. You try to kind of follow the track a little bit. You can just kind of catch it kind of along the game trail, but then at some point it slinks off the main part and you lose it in the foliage that's kind of running around. Go ahead and give me a survival check for your next day.
Ooh. 18.
18. So it's around this time that you're coming across and you think you've got just a perfect line on this doe. You're up, you're hidden in the underbrush. It's coming out into like a small bit of the clearing. At first you weren't quite sure if you were tracking down a goat or you're actually tracking down deer, but in this case, as you're getting up to it, you're like, okay, yeah, it's just a high mountain doe. It's a little shaggier, it's not quite a goat. And you're drawing and pulling your bead up on it, and give me a perception check.
24. Damn, why do I keep getting 24?
As you are drawing back your bow, you're about to let the arrow fly when you see a shadow. And it quickly passes over, and then you see it bank across some of the trees. And then coming down, swooping, is this glow of black and red. Swooping down, you see what appears to be the shape of a dragon latched onto the doe, pin it down, and as its foot touches it, it begins searing the doe, and it's squealing out this pain as the claws begin wrapping around it. Its jaws and serpentine neck snake up and let out this bellow of triumph and hunger. Give me an Arcana check. Yeah, well, go ahead and give me a nature to start off with.
16.
You know enough to know that this is definitely a dragon.
Thanks.
But what you're unsure about is that its skin and hide are not like what you would have expected for something of a red dragon or a black dragon. You don't look like you're looking at leather. It looks like you're looking at stone. And as you see the jaws come down, the saliva looks like it is almost like molten magma as it latches around the neck and then rips the head off from the prey animal and begins gobbling it down, the body of it melting into the mouth as it begins undulating its throat to bring it down and in. As the tail whips around as it hits parts of the underbrush, you can see that everywhere the tail hits, the trees themselves are burned from the area. The ground itself, where the creature is presently standing and beginning to do its feeding, is already coming alight. The creature itself, from what you can tell, is about the size of a large horse. From what you could tell, for a dragon, it might be pretty young, but it looks deadly. Mm-hmm. Give me a will save.
Will save. 18.
You begin finding yourself overcome with fear, and it is probably a very good idea to get away very, very quickly.
Can I stealth away?
You can try.
26. I guess I would have to do a hide and then a sneak, or maybe... I think I can just do sneak.
Yeah, it would be your sneak.
Yeah.
Drop down into the bushes, and you begin trying to move away. Suddenly you hear this silence. Oh, no. And then a globule of spit lands 2 inches away from your feet, right there to your side, and is slowly catching fire. And then that's when you bolt. You are now entering into a chase.
Oh no.
Because you are not terribly far away from where your encampment is, but you need to get away from this beast, for it is now hunting you. Now, on the bright side, you don't have to go too far, you don't think, because of the dense forest. But as you begin trying to move away, the slobber told you that it had a pretty good bead on exactly where you were at. And so, the question I have for you is pretty simple. We're going to use some of these wonderful chase cards and the chase mechanic found in the Game Mastery Guide.
Okay.
And so the way this is going to work is it doesn't work like standard rounds. The one who is pursued gets to go first, and you have to deal with the challenge. And your goals is to get away from the dragon. So to do so, you need to make it through 6 challenges, you and Alec together. So your first challenge is to get to Alec, and then you have to get to, both of y'all together have to then make it through 6 challenges. So 2 to get to him, and then 6 to go. And so you'll be making various skill checks as things end up cropping up through this chase. So we're going to have you represented as 1 die, and we'll go ahead and have the dragon represented by this nice metal D20 here. The dragon will be getting through an obstacle each round, and you and Alec together will have to get through the others. So, but first, for you to get to Alec, since you're in the mountains, you've been kind of snaking your way around a bunch of different areas, and the mountains in Druma have not been fully explored. So as you turn and bolt, you know that you can't just go directly to the encampment, because if you went, by the time you would fly down there directly, he would just jump up into wing, catch line of sight of you, and for all you know, will just cascade fire all upon you. So as you begin making a break for it, retreating away from the dragon, and then you just start bolting. So the speed that you initially showed in being able to run from Citadel All-Terrain back to town, you just fully take off. And so you're dodging in between trees and the like, and you just hear this thing. It is not that far behind you, and it is, you hear the trees moving out of the way, you hear the sizzling, like you're just hoping you don't accidentally set the whole forest on fire as you're running through. And you come to these 2 giant trees that are as wide as this beast on either side, and it's got this narrow gap that you think that you can fit through. So you can either look for a different route, or you can try to squeeze through these 2 trees. What do you want to do?
A squeeze.
Give me an acrobatics check.
26.
So that allows you to squeeze through the trees entirely, and you think you may be able to, you're able to keep your lead against the dragon. What you weren't expecting on the other side, as you quickly get through, basically like cartwheeling through the trees, is that you actually end up landing in a swarm of rats.
Hey, rats.
Now, you can either try to scare them off, or you can just try to muscle through the bites. What do you want to do?
Scare them off.
Give me an intimidation check.
No!
You can use buttons.
I'm going to deal with it. I rolled a natural 1.
Rolled a natural 1. Oh man, that is a lovely natural 1. So the dragon appears to have taken the trees, and you see that it is beginning to claw through those trees. You see its head scrambling back and forth to get through, shredding the trunks of the trees to begin making its way through it. And the rats begin gnawing and biting on you, dealing to you 4 points of damage in the process. Then, as you finally get through the rats though, and the bites end up distracting you from the other obstacle in your way. This nest of them was just on a slope, and it looks like it is slick with vegetation and was just part of a recent mudslide. You can either attempt to try to get a better grip on the stones, or you can try sliding down this with an athletics check.
I'll slide.
Alright, give me an athletics check.
19.
So you begin sliding down, heels first, and right at the edge of it, you're able to catch onto a tree limb, and in doing so, you find yourself not that far from the camp, and you are probably maybe 30 seconds away from the dragon right behind you. You see Alec is got the horses up. You know, he was expecting everyone to come in, and find yourself right in the middle of your encampment after coming down the copse of trees, somewhat not out of breath, but still breathing kind of heavily. Cousin, what's going on?
Chasm, get on your horse. Go. We're gonna go. We gotta go.
What? Okay.
Did I just say Caslin, get on your horse?
Yeah, you just...
Okay, never mind. Cut that. Stagger, get on your horse. We gotta go now.
What's going on?
Just go.
Okay. And so his military training hits hard on this one, and he is quickly on his horse. He's got his bag. He threw, in the process of doing it, you see him do this like little back step, and all of a sudden like there's dirt that covered the fire and stuff that was going there, and he is up on his horse, and y'all are both now mounted and tearing off. Where are we going?
Just drive!
And as you begin heading out from it, riding as fast as possible, one of the things that you had avoided to begin with was a swarm of wasps in a nest that was there. And so you can either try to ride through them and avoid the stings, or you can try using a little bit of the fire that is beginning to spread up around from the claws of the magma dragon. Yeah, it's a magma dragon, by the way.
Wow.
Is beginning to alight. So do you want to try to smoke them out, or do you want to try just riding through them?
Just riding through them.
Alright, go ahead and give me a fortitude save.
27.
So both of you critically succeed, and y'all get through the swarm of hornets, as behind you you can hear the magma dragon let out a bellowing roar as it crashed into your camp. And as you see, as you continue riding, you and Alec, through the forest, the magma dragon comes across the wasps, cares not for them as they try to sting the magma dragon from moving through. They just end up combusting as they touch their skin. And as you are moving through, you find that there is a stream that y'all had crossed earlier that for the horses is now in deep mud. You can either try to slog your way through, or you can take a few moments to look for a solid path across.
Look for a path.
Alright, give me perception.
19.
So between you and Alec remembers the dry path before, and quickly he points it out, and you quickly see it as well. And then y'all take and then gallop across this path on your horses and prevent any failed footing from occurring. And you finally come across a rugged cliff at the very edge of some of the area. So you can either try to climb down this cliff, or you can try plotting a path safely along it with the horses.
We don't want to leave the horses behind, so we're going to try to find a place wait for the horses to come.
Alright, give me a survival.
25.
Because of the nature of this cliff, and it's one of the reasons why y'all initially tried avoiding it, Alec he's not able to pick it out, but you're able to use your skill to be able to kind of see where it's going. You do hear the dragon is catching up, but you're still not through the cliff. Like, this is taking up a ton of your time. Do you want to try climbing from this point, or do you want to keep trying to make a way through? Because if you're not able to make it quick enough in time, you're pretty sure that the dragon is likely to be able to catch up with you. You can either climb and abandon the horses, or keep trying to pick out a path.
I'm not abandoning the horses, so...
Alright, give me survival.
Come on, 20. Need that 20. It's not a 20. 13.
13. This is when bad things happen. Because this is now coming out from the mud along the stream. You see the dragon on the cliff jump off of the cliff and then take flight. This smoke unfurling from its wings as it then begins to come around. And the first one it is taking is Alec's horse, because he rolled even worse than you. And the horse is grasped quickly in the jaws and claws of the dragon. Alec, looking back in leather armor, feeling the heat roiling off this beast, decides that he's got no other option. He is going to go ahead and take the jump. And as you, because it's that or the maw of this dragon coming down, and he lands,
oh no,
bad. But with the dragon now having had 2 sets of meals, you see the dragon take a light with the horse, carrying off all of the material. The only thing Alec had in his hands was his sword as he jumped, going down. And just off of this cliff, you hear the trees. Boom! And as you begin moving down through the other parts of the path. How high was that cliff? It's likely not enough to kill him. But it is a pretty high cliff. You figure this cliff is probably about 70 feet high.
What?
And y'all had made it down about 10, and then from there, he just out from there to get away from the dragon. And when you get down to the bottom side of the cliff, you look at a busted up Alec. Luckily, with him not being in his heavy armor, he was able to get far enough away from the cliff into the trees for some of it to break his fall. But you are pretty sure that he is, as you get down there, he's definitely nursing a broken arm at this point.
Could have been a lot worse. 60 feet, broken arm.
Yeah.
That's lucky right there.
It's because the amount of damage he would have taken would have been about 25. And because of how low he rolled and being able to reduce any of that fall, as you notice, he rolled a 2 on that one. Just not enough to be able to make it through, considering I think that one, he critically failed essentially the athletics check to climb down. 25 damage later and a broken arm. You come across him. He is definitely not in a happy state. He's kind of gritting his teeth on that one. Gazlin, where on earth did you find a dragon?
Really more found me, per se.
I think the camping trip is over.
Probably, yeah.
We need to get back and have probably Demos look at this, despite the... I don't know how well soft hands are going to deal with this kind of a bone. Because when you take a look at the break, it is a hard break at this point. Like, we've got, like, bone sticking out sort of thing. It is in a rough spot. I'm going to have to try to set this before we go. Can you go get the supplies I'm going to need? I need you to... He gives you a list of things that you can actually forage from the forest for it. So things for being able to make a splint. Some things that you already have, like bandages and that kind of stuff. Most of that was on my horse, but... this is going to be fun. So, give me a survival check.
Hey, this one was good. 27.
So, in addition to being able to find the raw materials for the binding, you're also able to find a couple of known medicinal herbs that you believe will help in his in the recovery to prevent things from or to prevent infection as well. And as you come back and you have all the stuff, you see him kind of grit his teeth. You're just like, and he takes one of the sticks that you found, takes it into his mouth because he's got to make sure he braces it. And then with his arm and it not being set, you see him suddenly yank and pull the arm so that he can get the bone back in. And then just this gritting of his teeth, and he begins feeling and then setting in the bone.
Oh, God.
As quick and as hard as he can. And then begins splinting and wrapping the arm for a temporary splint. I think I've got it set in properly, but I'm not going to be able to use this arm for a while. If we can get back quickly, I should still be able to fight. And he barely succeeds this medicine check for that one. It's a good thing he rolled a 17 and he's trained.
Yeah.
It's not Demos's hands, but it'll work in a pinch. Do you always find dragons?
That was my first one, actually.
Oh.
Hey, at least you're not sitting behind a desk, right?
It's that endorphin laugh at this point. That's true. Not behind the desk. Alright, I get the horse. So, with that, you're able to make it back afterwards. Once you get into town, Demos is actually a little hard to find presently, but you can get him over to the Temple of Shaylin, and the Shaylinites will be able to make sure that he's definitely got the bone set, since it only takes you a couple days, and together y'all are able to keep it tended and get back down pretty easily. He doesn't have to worry too much about disease or the like getting into there. But you've discovered that there is apparently a young magma dragon running up there on the border between Breachill and Druma.
Mm-hmm.
And it apparently has a taste for deer and horse now.
Yep. And possibly human. He was pretty determined.
Yeah, he was pretty determined on that one. So the part of the way that the chases work is that sometimes you can come across something that's not just hard, but is kind of crazy hard. And you never know. It could be fun when you run through on those. But I wasn't necessarily initially thinking that I would be throwing a magma dragon at you until that's what I randomly landed on. I'm like, this would be really fun. I know someone would run immediately from a fear-inducing magma dragon. You know, you wouldn't normally fight a magma dragon by yourself.
No, I wouldn't think so, no.
And so that was unexpected. The things that I bring upon myself and trying to weirdly legitimize craziness going on. So y'all are getting back probably about the 12th of Lamashan. And as you're getting back, you find that Breachill itself has already actually begun preparing for their harvest festival. So Alec comes into the Temple of Shaylin, or Desna, probably Shaylin, to get his arm fixed and at least get into the right set for it. And that whole guild is getting itself set up for this harvest festival going on. And there's this dude with this just savagely broken arm coming in, out of the wilderness, and y'all together to get his arm taken care of. And you just see all these preparations for a harvest festival in 2 days. There are people who are essentially working on like literal floats to be able to take down Main Street. And, and from where y'all came in, Shaylin's Grace was just the closest place where you figured clerics were going to be. And so you're surrounded by all these preparations, some for the floats, others for little contests. The most interesting one that actually pops up to you is there actually happens to be a cooking contest involved.
Oh.
So, because it's a harvest festival, it's all the different types of things that you would be able to pick up. And you did come in with some gain, even though you lost about half of it with Alec's horse. I'm going to have to mark down the gold for having lost that horse. You don't go through horses that much, but you go through enough horses as a party.
You need to buy some insurance.
Yeah, Horse Geico.
Yeah. Well, more like State Farm or something. Farmers Insurance.
Breachill Farms Insurance. Do you want to participate in this contest?
He would like to judge this contest.
Oh, you want to judge the contest? Well, you are in the best place to be able to do this while Alec is getting his arm tended to. So, to be able to judge the contest, I would say is probably a society check.
Okay.
As the local connoisseur of all things meat.
16?
16? You call in a favor out of Roxy Den, who, and as you're trying to make your case for this, comes up. Oh, you gotta let the sugar be able to go ahead and judge this contest. Have you seen all the things he's gone through? I've seen him go through cheese and meats and frog legs and pickled ears and pickled eggs. He has got a taste that only the Demal has more refined on. He can come in and tell you exactly everything that is going to be in this dish, and you can tell the quality from the quantity on top of that. And they're like, oh, yeah, and she kind of gives you a nudge, nudge, wink, wink on that one. I take care of my patrons. Just keep sending pibbins off over. They're making good entertainment. So you're able to get yourself finagled onto the eating contest judgment side of things. And so part of it is, so you've got the folks who are, like one of them is how many ears of corn can they go through. Then another one is like who's baking the best pie. You can probably get yourself on a couple different ones. So do you want to go for something like ones where you're judging like the type of contest the folks might be consuming, or maybe even entering those? Or do you want to maybe look at instances where you're judging the quality of the goods?
He's interested in entering the contests where you consume food, and he's interested in judging the ones where they cook food.
Which one do you want to do first?
The cook food.
Okay, so the two big ones is there is a boar contest where who can cook up the best boar, and then the next most famous contest, the one that all of the town wives and spouses are competing over, is definitely the pie contest. So the one in the middle part of the day is the boar contest, and one later towards the evening is the pie contest, because first thing you got to do is you got to have your lunch, and then you got to have your dessert. So as you get into this one, you begin trying out the different ones. So the first one that comes up is a boar sausage. It's kind of got an apple flavor to it when you're getting into it. and you think that that one's probably pretty good. But then you start getting into one who someone has done a smoked boar flank that's there. And they've taken the time, you know, it's juicy, it's very tender. But then the one that gets you is one that is, you just weren't expecting. You weren't expecting it so much, you need to roll a will save.
27.
You realize that someone has taken boar ribs and slow cooked them over a fire. And they began using a specialized sauce that you think might be raspberry. And this collection of herbs. And not only as you're consuming it, do you enjoy this unique flavor you haven't tried before, you had to hold off from stealing the other judges' plates to be able to bring over onto your own. And the one that you see who actually brought this together was actually Trinil Uskwood.
That's the dwarf, right? Wait, no.
Trinil is the proprietor of the Wizard's Grace.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of something. Tuskwood.
Yeah, that's Rorsk.
Okay.
He's the one who went in with the smoked.
Oh, okay. Where did you come up with this delicious meal?
She kind of blushes a little bit. Well, oddly enough, it came from watching how Pib and Zarf were, they've been training weirdly. And there was this one time that they got this bit of raspberries, and Zarf thought it would be a really great idea to go ahead and light it on fire and play a game of dodge with Pib right outside the fire pit out back, and he missed, and he ended up, I thought he ruined the whole roast, but in the end it actually turned out to be a really great flavor, and so from there it just kind of spun out.
Remind me to give them 2 thumbs up. And you also get 2 thumbs up. Everybody gets all the thumbs. Everybody gets thumbs up.
Does that mean I win?
Well, I'm not the only judge, but
So Trino definitely working on the barbecue and the stuff that's there. Now, does Kazlan have a favorite type of pie?
I don't know. I've never thought about Kazlan and pie, other than he probably just likes it a lot.
Is Kazlan a meat pie fan, a fruit pie fan, sweet pie, savory?
Fruit pie.
Fruit pie?
Yeah.
So you get over to the pie eating, you have 2 contests. You have a pie eating contest, and then you have the best pie contest.
Okay.
So the pie eating contest is before the best pie contest. Do you want to participate in the pie eating contest?
It's gonna taint my palate, but I guess I better give it up for the team here.
So they have the equivalent of fruit pies for this one. And so these are 6-inch round or 6-inch diameter pies. So not terribly big, but it's a good chunk of, this flaky sort of crust. And they have these big piles of them together there. And you find yourself in this long table of contestants who are there. And, you see everything from, that one small kid who's just really, really glad that he's able to get onto the table to eat as much pie as he thinks he can. And then a couple of the larger folks around. And the most intimidating one is the librarian, actually. A Jor-El Blacktusk. He is not a terribly pudgy individual, but he's, big, broad-shouldered, half-orc sort of dude, who's oddly kind of prim and proper as he sits down for the eating, and you're kind of like on one side, and you can catch him on the other side of the table, and then they kind of give the go signal to start, and give me a Constitution.
Just straight?
Yeah, straight Constitution. You know what? We'll turn that and we'll undo the 5th edition and go. It's fortitude save.
Okay. 22.
So you begin just gobbling them down, just like there's fingers and pie, and it's taking it down, and you see Jorsk is keeping pace with you going through this. That one little kid who's just glad he got the first pie is able to actually only get like halfway through because he's a little kid. His stomach isn't particularly large, but for a whole pie he made it through most of it. And you see a couple other contestants. Probably the weirdest one you saw was one of the Bramble Basher goblins made it onto the table, and for him, he just took it from its little pie tin and he started eating it and the tin at the same time. And this one was like, no, the tin will hurt you. Like, He just throws the tin out there and just continues scooping it. He's taking for as he's getting to his second pie, the other half of the tin, and then kind of using it as a spoon to be able to take it down. Give me another fortitude save.
18.
So you make it into your second pie, and Jorsk is still kind of keeping pace with you. And as the goblin's getting to his third one, you're just like, you can see the bulge going on with this one. But you know, it's not just about speed; it's also about pace, right? You know, you're not trying to get to who's getting to the 10th pie, but it's who can get the most pies in, right? And so you're eating and eating, and so you're making it up through your third. Give me another fortitude.
14.
And it's about this point that you get to about 3/4 of the way through your fourth pie when you just see Jorsk now with a pie in each hand. Bam! Nom 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 nom. Bam! Nom 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 nom. And he is now on his fifth pie through there, and he's got one in each hand at this point. And then you see the poor goblin. He looks like he tried replicating the same thing. He took a bite, and he basically is now face down into one of the pies, another one on top of his hands, and you know you're at least a pie behind. Go ahead and give me one more fortitude save.
All right, baby. Give me a good one. Natural 20. That means it is a 30.
So Jorsk is not able to keep up from when you just kind of just do this huge belch. You're just like, and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm in an air pocket. And then you begin double fisting using the same technique as Jorsk. But in the process of doing this one, it's 1 nom 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 nom, 2 nom 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 nom, 3 nom 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 nom. And you're now at pie number 8. Jorsk is now lagged on pie 7 when he can't take it anymore, and he turns over to the side and is just. You've won the pie eating contest.
I won that damn pie eating contest. That's right.
So the crazy part about the winning for the pie eating contest, though, was actually a seat on the pie tasting contest.
Oh, no.
Plus, you did get to eat all the pie.
Yes. Was this the pie that we're being judged too?
No. So the pie judging contest are for specialty pies.
Specialty pies. Okay.
So now for having won the contest and having consumed 8 6-inch diameter, essentially fruit, primarily apple-like pies, you now have before you, after the qualifying rounds, 4 pies in front of you. One of them is submitted by Trinil, which happens to be a savory boar meat pie. So go ahead and give me a fortitude save when you try that pie.
29.
So you get into that one, and after having so much sweet pie, that the savory nature of it hits your palate just right. Since you were already having eaten a lot of fruit ones, there's no way you got all of that out of your palate at the same time, and all those fruit notes just kind of interplay at the same time. You're like, this is a damn good pie. She knows her way around a pig.
Yeah.
And then you get the next
things you shouldn't talk about your date.
Yeah, how well you know your way around a pig, right? Then the next one in front of you is submitted by Roxy. Go ahead and give me a fortitude save when you dig into that one.
15.
You're pretty sure that she's been taking flavor notes from Pib and Zarf a little too much on this one. And what you have here is what you could describe as a habanero spiced pickled egg pie.
Oh god, that's disgusting.
And then that's when you lose it. It is just, it's gone. There was a bucket. And plus on top of that, you do hit the bucket, but on top of that, your mouth burns from all of the spiciness.
Mm-hmm.
Give me another fortitude save.
26.
But you almost kind of like the pain. And you have to shoot back some milk, which then is already kind of a problem, but you're able to hold that down. But you get a little bit of water, you finally get your palate clear, and you're able to make it through another apple pie, which doesn't taste the same after you've had like 8 other apple pies that day followed up. But it tastes a lot better than a pickled egg pie.
Yeah.
That's there. And then the very last pie that you have is actually one that is a very unusual one. It is one that is the last one is a very unusual flavor. It has raspberry notes. It's a fruit flavored pie as well. But then you realize it's got kind of a peppery spice flavor to it as well, as though the fruit itself has been given a different spin as it elevates this heated flavor to it. So you got the warmth and congealedness of what you normally get in a fruit pie, with that mix of soft and cellulose textures mixed into it, with this sweet and spicy combination that's there. And then on top of all of that, in addition to it, they've taken the time and they have made the pie crust into different colors and shapes, moving back and forth across it.
Wait, moving back and forth? Or just on
twisted
it?
back and forth across it.
Sorry. It was like animated pie.
And from what you can tell, this one was submitted by the town councilor, who is known as Sprizzlegig. Trini Sprizzlegig, a gnomish counselor, one of the youngest or newest members to the town council. Because she's kind of sitting over there. She's not one of the judges. She's like, kind of bouncing her seat back and forth, just waiting to see how people, if they like her pie or if they don't like her pie, that's going there. Give me a will save.
That's cocked. Literally, this on the edge. 25.
So from all of those pies, you've had a ton of pies. You don't think this is necessarily like the best pie you've had in your life, but this is still a pretty damn good pie. It's just you're a little soured on the whole spicy pickled egg pie, a little bit on this one. Do you want to go with the boar pie, or do you want to go with the fruit pie?
I think the fruit pie.
The fruit pie on this one?
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of effort in this one.
And so as everyone makes their decisions, Mrs. Bristlegig's the winner. She's like, yay! And she does a little dance back and forth because she ended up winning. And then she comes over and she shakes each of your hand. She hands you a handkerchief because you threw up on the other one. Maxie always tries the weirdest ones. There's a reason why she runs the pickled ear. She was trying for a pickled pie.
Right.
She'll never make it, but I'm glad this one was a winner.
Well, I think it was a really great effort. It just really shines amongst all the other pies. It really has a nice, tender mouthfeel and a sweet yet supple burning sensation. And just the presentation. The presentation was great. I really appreciated the way that you designed the dough and twisted it in all these shapes. It really shows a love of piemanship.
She kind of looks at you and she's like, if you ever want to find out another form of tender mouthfeel, you can always come by my office.
Oh God, no.
Somebody can just put away that many apple pies. It's always good to know someone who can eat.
Oh, stop. God, that's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. Staggerin, where are you? Staggerin, are you okay? So I gotta go. Bye.
So you're able to make it through the Harvest Day Festival with consuming a lot of food and being able to avoid an even more awkward encounter from a gnome. But that one was pretty rough. The time kind of begins moving on. Now, towards the end of the month of Neth, you're finally able to get your dueling sword in from the Aldori school that's over. A lot of strings we're having to pull to be able to get that in. Mm-hmm. Do you want to get that enchanted?
Can I?
You can. You can get a runes inscribed on that.
How much would that be?
So to get the rune inscribed on it is another 35 gold.
Oh God. What rune would that be?
That would take it to being a +1.
Well,
if it's your offhanded weapon with your dueling range, you technically don't need it.
Yeah, I'll wait. If I want it later, I'll do that.
So, and you're getting towards the end of Neth. The general repairs on the keep have been done. You went through a candy eating contest during the festival of Jester's Cap, where you had a bunch of kids running around in costumes. A lot of them dressing up as, oddly enough, kobolds this time. Mm-hmm. Like kobolds, and at first you thought they were werewolves, but they're kind of wargs through the time. But the walls are up, the general repairs and the like have been done. You can finally have your own room in the keep, whether you want to have one in the share space with the goblins on the basement or up in the general floors where there's rooms, as y'all begin setting all of those up. It's about the end, or right at the beginning of Kuthon, when you notice that Stano has some new guests coming in, and they may not be the ones that she was necessarily expecting. And now we'll go ahead and get Deimos.
Okay.